Well, hey guys, so today we are going to be looking at a sort of a new thing today. We're going to be talking about compositing images. Now, compositing images is simply taking more than one image and putting them together in a, just composition. So we have several elements here that you've downloaded from your Google Drive that's linked in your D2L. And we've got a couple of different things that are labeled here. We've got a door, we've got north, we've got all these various things here. And we're going to see if we can't put these all together. So I'm going to spend the next few minutes and I'm going to be talking about several kind of features of Photoshop that help when it comes to compositing and help when it comes to putting things together. Not just the selection tools, which we will be using a lot of those, but several other things here. So let's start off. Find the picture that's called Pier and go ahead and drag it into Photoshop. Just open it up as the background here. And we're going to create sort of a surreal, kind of like a dreamlike thing. We talked about surreal portraits when we talked about portraiture and stuff like that. And so we're going to be doing a little bit of that today. Basically, what we're just doing is just taking some of these elements and trying to combine them together to form a sort of a dreamlike kind of thing here. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to isolate this background here. We're going to change the sky. Right now, the sky is this sort of like cloudy gray kind of smeared look with a little bit of blue there, and we're going to replace the sky with this sunset sky. Let's go ahead and drag that in and it'll place it down like it's embedded. And the first thing we're going to do is before we commit to this, we're just going to move it to where we can kind of roughly get the horizon even with the horizon of the sea in both pictures, and hold down shift and expand it out so it stays roughly the same, shall we say, aspect ratio, so it doesn't stretch or anything. Make sure you're holding down shift, locking that down. Make it a little bigger than the background here, and press enter. Now, obviously, it's hard to tell where this is, on the layer. So what we're going to do is we're going to reduce the opacity slightly to about, say, like 60% or so, or maybe even a little bit higher here to like 70%, so we can still kind of see where the background is. And we're just going to see if we can't match up the horizons right about there. That looks about right. You can get in close to see. And what we'll do is we're going to rasterize this layer. So right now we should see this little like icon here with the little square, little piece of paper here. That means that we can't directly edit it unless we change it from a picture. Because right now, this picture here, if I were to, for instance, go over here and right-click on it and look at properties, this picture here is pretty big, right? It's a pretty big picture. It's 5 megabytes, so it's got a pretty high resolution. And if we were to say open this up in a new document, it might be even bigger than the one we're working with, which is good because scaling things down is pretty easy in Photoshop, but scaling things up tends to make things a little less, a little more pixelated. So press enter there, and what we'll do is we'll just take our eraser tool and just click anywhere, and it'll tell me that it needs to be rasterized before proceeding. So edit contents right here, all this stuff. Just press OK, and that'll allow us to erase if we want to. But we won't erase. We'll just grab our rectangular marquee tool. So if you see like the ellipse here, just make sure you have the rectangular marquee tool, and I'll get in a little closer so I can see. And I'll just select the entire area below the horizon here for my sunset picture. So let's see if I can't go across there. I'll scroll out. I'll just move it down slightly. And I'll just press delete on the keyboard. Right about there. Okay, and so I'll undo that. I'll deselect, oops. Control D to deselect, and I'll bring the opacity up to 100. And let's see what we got here. All right, that looks about right. I think there's a little bit of the sea left over on the side there, so what we can do is we can kind of take our eraser here and just turn the softness up a bit, or turn the hardness down a bit. Maybe go through and just kind of clean that up a little bit. And I'll hold down shift so I can kind of erase in a straight line here. So even though I'm holding down shift, and even though my eraser is below where it was, it's still erasing where I started off at, so that's good. I'll just move that down slightly. Alright, that looks good. Okay, and so now we have our new sunset sky. So if you want to kind of look before and after, we can kind of like just before, after, and so already it looks totally different. Right? So that's neat. All right, so what we'll do now is we'll take out a couple more items here. Once again, I want to make this to be somewhat surreal, and I want to take a little sort of liberty with how things look. So I'm going to go ahead and take this little north picture. I'll pull that down, and I'll shrink this down to about the width of the pier. So right about there, until it's about the width of the pier, maybe a little bit wider, so it fits in a little, fills it up a little bit more. That's probably good. And what we're going to do is we're going to maybe a little bit smaller. We're going to change the mode here. So center this as best you can over the pier, and we'll change the mode here. Now, layer modes basically just affect how it looks with the rest of the layers. So if I were to change the mode to, say, something like dissolve, nothing really happens. But if I were to change it to something like multiply, it suddenly kind of disappears into the distance here. Right? So I'm gonna shrink this down until I'm fairly certain that like the N and the arrow will fit in. I can even pull this down slightly here, and I'll just put this a little bit more. All right. And so what we'll do is once we have that about centered, I'm going to click on my little marquee tool here, and I'm going to right-click here. I'm going to say Free Transform. And Free Transform brings up the transform controls, which allows us to rotate it. But if we right-click, we can find various different options here. So just scale is making it bigger, rotate obviously spinning it around, skew. If I click on skew, what I can do is I can just sort of like move one side up independent from the other one, right? And if I hold down Control, it'll, what's it, Alt? Yeah, Alt, it'll do both sides. If I hold down Shift, it doesn't really lock into anything. But if I right-click and I do perspective, it will allow me to kind of change the perspective of it. Right? So in this case, it's making it seem as if it's going off at the distance. So I'm going to widen the base and narrow out the bottom until it looks about the same aspect ratio, the same kind of like, shall we say, kind of a perspective as the pier here. So once I do that, I'll just go ahead and click that, and then I'm going to just sort of center this down here a bit, just so it fits into the pier, like so. And then I'm going to invert this. So let's go to Select, Image, Adjustments, Invert. And what we'll do now is we'll just take our eraser tool and we'll erase this harsh edge. So let's get a real fuzzy eraser here, and we'll just sort of erase around the edges. Oh. Make sure it's rasterized here. So we get a little harsh edge down. Let's say we could probably even lighten this up a bit. Maybe take the opacity down slightly. How about this? How about instead of, I'm going to back this up, and instead of inverting it, I'll leave it the way it was, and I'll just do what I was doing before with the eraser. Then I'll have to probably let it blend a little bit better. There we go. That's better. Right. And I might even shift this perspective even more because it looks not quite. That's fine. That's fine. Okay. All right. So now we have this little end pointing. So we have it laying flat on the thing here. So what is it? This looks like it's backwards. All right. So if I were to, like, say for instance, do free transform, I could even go so far as just to flip it horizontally. But that's backwards, right? Okay, so here that's our little addition to the pier here. We'll just kind of leave that the way it is. Let's go over here to our stuff. Or here, let's find our door here. Now the door is just this photograph someone took. You can even see the person who took the picture here. Is just this little picture of these arches here. We're going to see if we can't isolate just the white sort of columns and the little rooftop here. We're going to make everything else clear. So let's go ahead and rasterize it by clicking the eraser on there at one point. And we'll just go through, and I'm just going to go through here, and I'm just going to use my magnetic lasso tool to isolate the parts here. Okay, oops. Okay, I'll just complete that. Stick it. It's pretty clean edges here, so it should be pretty simple just to make a little selection with your magnetic lasso tool. Just do your best to not dip into. Oops, I dipped into the column there. That's okay. Because what I can do once I have my first little selection here, I'll just connect those. I'll click on my quick mask, which is by pressing Q on the keyboard. And I'll just take my brush, make sure you have brush selected, and every time you hit with black, it'll deselect something. So I'll just take my brush tool and I'll just sort of brush over this right here. And get a little closer so I can see better. You can hold down Shift again, you can just sort of like make a straight line without having to worry about anything. That's about right. And so I'll just take off the quick mask, I'll zoom out some, and I'll just press delete. Right, and let me just zip in here real quick and use my eraser tool. I'll Control D, I'll deselect, and I'll just pull this down some. I'll clean this up, right? And so I'm just going to, for just a bit, start doing taking out the background here. And some of this will be easier with the brush tool here, or the pen tool rather. So with my pen tool here, I'll just I'll make sure I don't have curvature tool. I just have pen. And I'll just click, and I'll just. Oops. So the straight edges here. Oops. So just with whatever tools you have available, make sure you have the right layer selected. Oops. That. That's the path. Control D here. Whatever tools you have available, see if you can't get those columns cut out, as well as the door. Get the door cut away. So I'm being a little rough with this. I'm going to go back in and clean up the quick mask tool as soon as I get done with this. Q, brush, and just brush away the parts you don't want selected. And then obviously what you can do is you can switch over to white by pushing this little button over here, this little two-headed arrow that's bent, and you can just sort of brush away the parts that you do want selected. Make sure that everything that's not red is the stuff that you want selected. Change to black, the stuff that you don't want selected. Or paint with black. Alright, and I'll press Q and I'll just press delete. This might be a little bit rough, but that's okay. Zoom in here. This right here is so homogeneous, I think I'd probably use my magic wand tool to select this. I'll just delete that, that's good. And you can go over it with the eraser afterwards to sort of clean up the edges here, just to make sure we don't have any noise around. I'm using the touchpad on my mouse, so I'm going a little bit slower here. That's bad. That went too far. I'm going to plug in this mouse here real quick. That's better. Oops. This is a little bit higher. I brush a little bit harder. Yeah, that's better. Down some. So if you could probably skip ahead to see where I'm at here later on once I have this all cut out. All right, let's see about this. Let's try the magic wand tool again for the bricks. No, that's too much. We could probably just try the magnet lasso again. I'll probably do a trick. Oops. Far field. Around here, take it up, and once again, quick mask tool on, brush tool on. You can press X on your keyboard to switch without using the mouse, without taking the mouse away from your work area here if you wanted to be real specific. And so I'll just press X and I'll just light this area up here. So X again, get the white selected so I can take care of this. X again, light up this area here. And so just, let's just say, use all the tools that we've been using to get this selected here. Press Q on the keyboard, delete that, and then we'll just do the door by using the rectangular marquee. Press M. So we have lots of tools to choose from here. And you can right-click on this. You can transform the selection slightly. So if I want to zoom in, I can just hold down the Alt key and roll up with the mouse wheel. Oh, there's that. Alright, I'll just delete that. Press Enter first to change this selected. Alright. And we'll do the same thing to the sort of welcome mat here. I'll get my pen tool selected and I'll just sort of click around here, making some real cursory adjustments to this. If you hold on the space bar and you can click and drag to get all that away, to navigate your make selection. Complete. Alright, and so now we have this little doorway here. And I'm going to just take this doorway here and I'm going to we've got something missing. We've got some stuff down here on the bottom that shouldn't be there. What's down here? Okay, I'm going to make my eraser pretty big. And I'm just going to go across the bottom. There we go. We had just a little spot there that I had missed, which I would probably have seen it once I went through. So once again, move tool here. What's going on? There's something down here too. There we go. Yeah, it's fine. Okay, so what we'll do is we'll just shrink this down slightly. I'm going to place this in the middle of the water back here. Right? So I'm just going to pull this back. I'll shrink this down some more, and I'll place it back here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to see if I can't center it here. And it should be centered right along the side of the north. And I'm going to just sort of slightly sort of fuzz out with a soft eraser the bottoms of the column of the door. And I'm just going to take this, shrink this down slightly here, and I'll just sort of go across the bottom like that. There we go. Maybe I'll even take my opacity down slightly, and I'll just go across here just to see if I can't get it to sort of blend. So it looks like it's sort of sinking into the ocean, almost. And then I'll probably have to affect my levels slightly because this sort of sticks out a little bit. Let's go to Image Adjustments, Levels, and let's pull down our levels or pull up our shadows just to make it sort of blend in a little bit more. Maybe even our midtones as well. That's sort of darkening up the top and not affect the bottom very much. Yeah, that's fine. Okay, so we're trying to blend all this stuff together. So we want to give this sort of illusion of there being like, say for instance, some fog on the on the water here. So I'm gonna find this. There's this clouds for pier, and I'm just gonna pull this out. And what I'll do is I'll just take this down a bit, and I'm gonna take my eraser. I'm just gonna freeform erase around the top edges of the clouds, so I can just kind of take this, just sort of isolate these clouds here without it being too terribly. Make sure my opacity is all the way up, without it being too terribly exact. And you'll see what I'm doing in a second here. So let's do this. And then what we'll do is we'll take our layer mode and we'll change this to overlay. And that'll give us this sort of sense of fog. And I can even just pick it around here and just sort of pull it down until I can sort of keep it sort of stuck on top of the fog here. I might even just make it normal, but just pull the opacity down a good deal to like maybe 16% or like, there we go. That's probably good. Or I don't know. Maybe I think maybe overlay might work better. Just sort of pull that down a little bit. And we could even make this a little bit bigger so it doesn't look like it's clouds, it looks more like it's fog. So I'll just make it bigger. All right, so what we'll do now is we'll take the clouds for sky. We'll put the clouds of the sky over here. And same deal. We'll just kind of take our eraser here, and we'll just sort of erase the. We'll pull this up to the top, and we'll just sort of take the edges off here by kind of erasing with a big eraser, a big soft eraser here. And once again, we'll change this mode to overlay as well. We'll actually kind of take some of this off, just so we can kind of give it. We'll pull this behind the door, so that way we get a bit of a. Let's actually change this to multiply. No, let's see. Let's take we'll overlay, and then we'll take the opacity down. Good deal. Alright, we'll just kind of have some clouds kind of hanging out there. We'll make this a good deal bigger than the sky itself, just so it's easier to blend it and stuff. Alright, good. Okay, so last thing we'll do is we'll put a little, we'll put our boat and our birds in there. So I'll take our sailboat, and we'll isolate this. Pull this off to the side here, and we'll kind of cut this out. So I'll just zoom in here, and I'll just take my magnetic lasso. Some more. And I'll just go around this guy. And I'll make sure I have everything selected here, so make sure I have the top of the sailboat as well selected. I'm adding to selection. I already have it set to be adding, so I'll add to that. And then I'll just right click on it, and I'll select inverse, and I'll just make sure I have this rasterize, and I'll press delete. And then what we'll do, deselect, zoom out. I'll just sort of like sit this down here behind the. I'll make this a bit smaller here. I'll put this right here behind the door. You know, as far as going off to the horizon there. All right, and then last thing I'll do is I'll put these birds in here. I think these birds are a PNG, so I don't think there's any background to take away, but it might be a JPEG. Okay, in this case, I'll just go to rasterize it. I'll go to select color range, and I'll press OK, and I'll just press, okay, once again I'll go to select color range, and I'll select white, press OK, and I'll just delete, and I'll shrink these down, and place these just in this, oops. That's interesting. Once again, let's go to select color range. Wow. Okay, how about this? I'll just go over here and I'll zoom in and I'll just erase all this, including this bird in the center. I'll do that. And I'll shrink the rest of them down. We'll have them flying off from the side here. Maybe even a little smaller in the distance. All right. Okay, so now we have this fun little picture here that we've created. Let's go ahead and add our watermark to it. Just grab your text tool, just put your name anywhere down here on the base, and just, and you probably want to make it white so it stands out a little bit better against the darker area of the sea there. And you could even take down the opacity slightly, just to make it more like a watermark instead of a piece of text there. And we'll just save this as a JPEG, and we'll submit it there, and great. So this is our first venture into compositing. We saw a lot of different things, layer modes, using our selection tools, using our eraser tools, using our brush tools, our quick mask, all those things. All those things come into play. These are really important skills to know to be able to sort of composite some of these pictures together, right? So it can create some real interesting surreal effects. All right, well, very good. Cannot wait to see what you guys produce. Go ahead and submit that to D2L, and I will see you guys in class.